Here's something funny I've been thinking about lately as I've been doing these interviews of these producers and mixers that I always wanted to meet, that I really admire. The Brendan O'Briens, the Butch Viggs, Daniel Lanois, Andy Wallace, all these people, Rick Rubin, that I've wondered about. And that when I was in a band, we talked to our label about working with some of these people. And of course, their response was, no, we can't work with them because they did a record for us before that didn't do well. And we were like, well, that's not us. So what if that record didn't do well? But of course, these record labels, when you sign to them, they're the ones that make the decisions. So when we started our Billionaire record in 1999 on London Sire Records, I literally knew nothing about gear, nothing. Like an SM57, the most basic microphone that you see in every bar, or an SM58, I didn't know what those were. I actually ran into a guy when I first moved here named Ben Grosse. He's a producer. He had a studio up in Detroit, and one of my buddies said, hey, I got this gig for you filling in on bass for this band that's signed. They were called Orbit. They were on A&M Records or something. It's like, you got to go up here to this place in Detroit and rehearse with them, and then it's just one gig. You're filling in for their bass player. I'm like, okay. So I go up there, and this guy Ben owned the studio, and he had done the band Filter, and he had a bunch of hit records at the time. And he had this SSL console in this, it was like a cinder block building or so, just a square building, no windows or anything, up in Detroit. And I see all this gear mic'd up. I was like, what is that? He's like, what do you mean? I was like, what do those microphones do? He had everything routed, and they were just finishing this record. And I was going to rehearse with this band, and so we rehearsed and everything, but I'm so fascinated by the setup of all this stuff. Now, I've been in studios before, but I didn't know anything about it. So he starts telling me as if I know nothing, because I literally knew nothing. I was like, why use that mic on the snare? He had a 57 on the snare with a mic taped to it that was a AKG 451. He's like, well, the 451 gets the bottom end of the snare and the crisp top end of it, and the 57 kind of gets the impact. Well, why do you have a mic on the bottom? Well, because that gets the sound of the snares. I was like, can I write this down? He's like, yeah. So I start writing this stuff down, and then I was like, why do you have two microphones on the toms? Well, the one on the top gets the sound of the top head, and the one on the bottom gets the sound of the other head. But you have to flip the polarity on the bottom head so they're in phase with each other. I'm like, what's that mean? That means so that the sound waves don't cancel themselves out. And he had a 414 on the top. It's a condenser mic. And he had a 421 on the bottom, a Sennheiser 421. I'm writing this stuff down. I've never heard of these microphones. I've seen them in studios before, but I didn't know the names. I never paid attention. I didn't care until that day. So I start writing the stuff down. Why do you have the overheads like this? I'm drawing diagrams of the stuff. What is on the bass drum? Why do you have that drum? What's that weird looking mic outside the bass drum? Oh, that's a Neumann U47 FET mic. What do you have in the inside? Oh, I have an Electro Voice RE20 in the inside. Well, why have two mics on it? Well, the mic in the inside picks up the smack of the beater head, and the mic in the outside picks up the resonance of the resonant head. And then you get them in phase so that the sound waves line up. And he showed me in Pro Tools. And I'm writing this stuff down, literally drawing diagrams. And then the room mics and everything. This went on for probably an hour. So we make our Billionaire record that was a complete disaster. I've told the story about this many times. But we have a few months until our record comes out, and we're out of money. I got no money, so I got to go get a job immediately. So I come back here. I talk to my lawyer, Reed, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to have to go back and teach guitar lessons at this music store, Buckhead Music. He's like, why don't you produce some bands, make some extra money doing that? I was like, you can't make money producing bands. He's like, yeah, you can. He's like, I got a band for you. So he connects me with this band, Left Front Tire, and anyways, I start producing bands. And the first song I did off this first set of demos ended up on the American Pie 2 soundtrack, just miraculously. But I didn't know anything about what I was doing. I wasn't even engineering it. I had an engineer that I worked with. And then Billionaire's record came out and it flopped. So I just kept producing. As I'm doing this stuff, I'm learning more and more about it, but I'm still not the engineer, but I'm observing at the places that I'm working. And so finally I start to engineer on my own. And I find this notebook and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do just what Ben did. So I say to the studio, Tree Sound here, do you have these mics? They're like, yeah. I said, this is how I want to set up. put these 414s on the top, put these 421s on the bottom, put these two mics on the top of the snare mic on the bottom, literally set it up exactly like that, put the room mics in there, ran it through the console, and I listened to it, made sure the polarity was right and everything. Drummer played, and it sounded amazing. Couldn't believe it. So I tracked the drums, and working with my assistant Ken, who you've seen in videos here. It was like the first time that we're working together. I tracked the drums. They sound great. I go on to the bass, and I had written down stuff that he was doing, but also Ken, he would go into the A room at Tree Sound, and he would look at what people were doing, right? Said, well, people are using this on the bass. They have a DI, they have this. I mean, this is literally how I'm doing it. I have no idea about this stuff, but I'm learning quick because I have a great ear for this. So now I meet these people, the Brendan O'Briens, these guys that are amazing engineers and producers. Andy Wallace, one of the greatest mixers ever. Daniel Lanois, one of the greatest producers and engineers and mixers ever. It's funny now that to meet these people and ask them about their process. And of course you find out that for the most part, a lot of these people learned on their own. Daniel Lanois with his brother in their parents' their mom's basement, they learned how to engineer just by using their ears and figuring it out, kind of like I did. I was asking people questions. Brendan O'Brien, when I talked to him, there were guys in town that taught him how to engineer and do stuff, and he picked things up and he found things that sounded good to him. Over a lifetime, you develop all these abilities to listen to things and decide, okay, is this a good sound? What's wrong with this? Are the mics in phase? Are they out of phase? There's so many different components to this stuff. You also know how to fix stuff. Not only do you know how to fix stuff, but you can go in. I mean, I can go in and replay anything on my own. I'm working on a new Billionaire record that we've been working on for about 1.5 years. And it's almost done. We're in the mixing process right now. And the ability to have the time to do this and have the knowledge and have the gear is unbelievable. I mean, it really is. And I keep thinking, like, I can't believe I know these people that I wanted to work with in the past, and now I know them. But they're not making records, or I've already made my own record anyways, or I'm making our Billionaire record, so it doesn't even matter. I feel really fortunate to have had this education, which is why I share these things on the platform here, why I bring you interviews with mixers and engineers and producers, in addition to all the musicians. Because these people, without them, there's no record to listen to, right? They're just as important as the people making the music, in my eyes. Love to know your thoughts. If you want to see more content about things like that too, these interviews with these legendary producers and mixers, let me know. Thanks for watching.